Maandalizi ya mazishi ya Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga, kamati inayoongozwa na Naibu Rais Profesa Kithure Kindiki katika makao makuu ya Naibu wa Rais. Hebu tusikize yanayojiri huko. Naam.
Naam. Mtazamaji, kama unavyoona walikuwa ni viongozi wengi waliokusanyika katika mkutano huo, mkutano ambao umechukua saa kadhaa. Baadhi ya viongozi ambao wanajumuisha viongozi wa serikali na vile vile viongozi wa chama cha ODM wakiwa wamejuika pia na nduguye marehemu Raila Odinga, Daktari Oburu Oginga. Na sasa hivi tunasubiri tu kumuona Naibu Rais Kithure Kindiki akiweza kufika katika eneo hilo kuweza kutoa kauli zake. Tunamuona pia Waziri Aden Duale, waziri wa usalama. Tunamuona katibu katika wizara ya usalama Daktari Raymond Amolo. Tunamuona pia seneta wa kaunti ya Kilifi Mheshimiwa Stewart Mazayo, vile vile gavana wa kaunti ya Mombasa Abdul Swamad, gavana wa kaunti ya Kisii pia vile vile Simba Arati, miongoni mwa viongozi wengine. Nafikiri mwanasheria mkuu Dorcas Onyango pia akiwa ni miongoni mwa viongozi wale, waziri Wycliffe Oparanya na kadhalika. Mashirima.
Na bila shaka ni baadhi ya viongozi hapo. Tunamwona waziri wa ulinzi Soipan Tuya, kiongozi wa ODM ndio huyo naibu wa rais Profesa Kithure Kindiki. Hebu tumsikize.
Good afternoon, fellow Kenyans. Good evening. I think we are all in a state of disorientation. Good evening. I take this opportunity to welcome you to this press briefing by the National Committee on the State Funeral of the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Fellow Kenyans, as you're aware, today His Excellency President William Ruto made a presidential proclamation announcing the passing on of the former Prime Minister of Kenya and leader of ODM, the Honorable Raila Odinga. The President announced a number of decisions arising out of earlier meetings which were convened during the day, first with the family of our departed leader, later on with the National Security Council and the Cabinet. After deliberations and consultations, it has been directed that a national committee on the state funeral of the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga be established. It is also important to reiterate that the government of Kenya has decided to give the Honorable Raila Odinga a state funeral, and that is why this committee has been established. The committee will be co-chaired by the Deputy President and the Honorable Senator Dr. Oburu Oginga, the elder brother of our departed leader. The other members of this committee from the Cabinet: CS Wycliffe Oparanya, CS for Cooperatives and MSMEs; CS Soipan Tuya, CS for Defense; CS Aden Duale, CS for Health; and the Attorney General, Dorcas Oduor. From the family, besides the co-chair person, Senator Oburu, Dr. Wenwa Akinyi Oginga, William Ojonyo, Elijah Oburu, and Joe Ager, Doctor. From the ODM party, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, the governor of Kisumu County, Governor Gladys Wanga, who is also the national chairperson of ODM, Governor James Orengo of Siaya, Governor Abdulswamad Sharif Nasir of Mombasa, and Governor Simba Arati of Kisii. From the Senate, Minority Leader Senator Justice Stewart Mazayo and Senator Godfrey Otsotsi. From the National Assembly, the Minority Whip Junet Mohammed, Minority Leader and former Minority Whip Junet Mohammed, the current Minority Whip Millie Odhiambo, Dr. James Nyikal, Dr. Otiende Amolo, and Dr. Lillian Gogo. The secretary to the committee will be the Principal Secretary for Internal Security and National Administration, Dr. Raymond Omolo. It is also important to note that the government has dispatched a high-level team consisting of government officials, family, and party officials to travel this evening to India to retrieve and bring back home the remains of our departed leader. That team already has been announced by the President. It is led by the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. It has members of the Cabinet. It has members of the party, governors, and other senior officials and family members. And therefore, what has been decided is to share responsibilities. So some of you may be asking why so and so not part of this. So we have shared responsibilities. Some are helping us to go and do that important task, and the others have been left behind to speed up the arrangements for the next steps. His Excellency the President has declared 7 days of mourning, and the flags will fly at half-mast for the next 7 days within the Republic of Kenya and all the diplomatic missions abroad. It is expected that we will move very quickly in the next few hours and few days for the reason which has been communicated to us by the family of the late Prime Minister following consultations between the family and the family lawyer. We have been advised as a committee by the family that it was the wish of the Honorable Raila Odinga to be buried within the shortest time possible following his demise. And the family has informed this committee that that timeline is 72 hours. The family that the Prime Minister died outside the country and notwithstanding, this process must be concluded. We are advised that the family and the ex-committee will give respect to the wishes, the nuances, and contexts that are important, considering the value Odinga stood for. In that connection, it has been decided, therefore, we will have an expedited process that balances the wishes of the departed Prime Minister, the wishes of his family, but also the community and other imperatives that must be taken into context. A ground time of 2 hours and make a turnaround to a will be received at the airport by His Excellency the President, members of the family, and other to leave funeral home. And at 12 o'clock, the body will be moved to the parliamentary buildings at the Central Business District. And in Parliament, there will be the public viewing of the body of the departed Prime Minister tomorrow from 12 noon to 5 p.m. in the evening. At the same time, this committee has decided to help members of the public, supporters, friends of the late Prime Minister who may not make it to some of the events that will be happening tomorrow and the days to come, with public places from which they can watch all the proceedings from tomorrow's arrival to the other events that will follow until the final rituals and the final rites in the interment of our late leader. In that connection, therefore, public grieving spaces will be created in various places, especially within Nairobi and also in other areas, as will be announced, where members of the public can follow proceedings on big screens and participate in grieving and mourning our departed leader. After the public viewing of the body in Parliament tomorrow, the body will return to Lee Funeral Home. On Friday, from 8 a.m., there will be a state funeral service of the late Honorable Raila Odinga at Nyayo Stadium. And this state funeral service is expected to be attended by dignitaries and VVIPs from outside Kenya. It is a state event, and it will be conducted in accordance with the protocols of state events to give respect to the stature of our foreign hero. That state funeral service, once concluded, will then lead to the body being moved to the current home of the Honorable Raila Odinga for overnight stay. On Saturday, the body will leave Nairobi for Kisumu early in the morning, and there shall be public viewing of the body of the late Prime Minister at Moi Stadium in Kisumu City between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. in the afternoon, after which the body will travel by road from Kisumu City to Bondo for overnight stay. The burial of the late Prime Minister Raila Odinga will take place on Sunday and will be conducted according to the traditions of the Anglican Church to which the Honorable Raila Odinga belonged. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Kenyans, that is the status update of where we are on this very, very unfortunate development that has shocked the country and the world. I pray that we will all give the family the dignity they deserve, even as they struggle to bear with the moment of grief. We are also requesting the ODM party, which is represented in this committee, and also at the grassroots, to support and work together with our security agencies in the normal party manner to make sure that there is order and dignified mourning to ensure that we do not have any incidents that could disrupt this very important moment in the history of our country. So we want to request the ODM leadership and the branch leadership in all the places which are concerned to help us and work with our security agencies to make sure there is order. And I am informed that the party has structures, and we are confident those structures will support and supplement what the security agencies will be doing. That is all for now. We will have further briefings every day between now and then, and perhaps tomorrow evening we will have another briefing at the end of the day. I want to give now this chance to the co-chair of this committee, the Honorable Dr. Oburu Oginga, Senator for Siaya County, to say a few remarks, and then we conclude this briefing. Thank you.
Yeah. Fellow Kenyans, I take this opportunity also to join you in mourning your leader. We are mourning and also celebrating the life of a great leader. As I had told you before, I informed you that he was well and kicking about, and he will soon be back to the country. That was not a lie, it was the truth. He was very well until last night. I spoke to him. He was vibrant, up and kicking. It is only unfortunate this morning that he suffered shock, which is suspected after the postmortem to be heart attack. But we are not just mourning, we are also celebrating the life of our great leader. I don't have strength to speak much now. What the DP has said is what we have discussed and agreed And I am only praying that our people at this moment behave in a dignified manner. Let us give my brother the dignified burial and send off that he deserves. And I hope there will be peace during this time and reflection on his life. So I thank everybody. I don't have to say much more.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I apologize. I left out the name of one committee member, the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport, David Sichir, who is here, is also a member of this committee representing the Cabinet. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Former Prime Minister. And our attention now shifts on the team that is now airborne upon the Ethiopian airspace heading to Mumbai in India aboard this KQ, Boeing engineered in the United States of America, the latest in fuel efficiency amongst the other features. The team that is led by the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi also is comprised of the leadership of Parliament and the executive. Tomorrow, they will be bringing back the body of the former lawmaker, the former Prime Minister, back to the country. And thereafter, there will be a series of events starting in Parliament for public viewing where he will be lying in state. According to the government, there also will be other public viewing areas given the enormity and the magnitude upon the shoulders of the country following his demise. Thereafter, the body will be returned to the Lee Funeral Home here in the county of Nairobi. On Friday, the body will be taken to the Nyayo National Stadium and will be accorded state funeral status. Dignitaries from across the continent and the world will be here to pay their respects to the former Prime Minister and the son of the soil. On Saturday, the attention shifts to Kisumu County, where locals across the larger Nyanza region will be viewing the body of the former Prime Minister and pay their respects in Kisumu County. Thereafter, he will be transferred by road to Siaya County for an overnight stay, where he will be laid to rest on Sunday. President William Ruto earlier today at State House in Nairobi announced 7 days of national mourning, where flags will be flying at half-mast in Kenya in honor of the country's former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Let's listen into the address by the head of state from State House in the afternoon.
8:30 a.m. Kochi, India time, exactly 6 a.m. Kenyan time. For here where Odinga is reported to have had a sudden difficulty breathing before collapsing. A cardiopulmonary resuscitation CPR was later administered without success. Odinga was then rushed to the casualty and emergency section, where another attempt to resuscitate him failed.
His doctor and security were with him, and we continued CPR and did emergency intubation, that is putting a tube in the respiratory system, trachea, and continued CPR along with other resuscitative measures. Initially, there was no pulse or BP recordable, even palpation-wise.
The former Prime Minister was then moved to the intensive care unit of the hospital for further intervention.
In ICU, after some time, we could get some rhythm. On the monitor, it showed ST elevation in the ECG leads, in the anterior leads, plus we could see regional wall motion abnormalities, that is reduced movement of one artery territory, that is LAD territory. There was hypokinesia. This means there is less movement in that area. So after stabilizing him with some IV fluid and all, we just give him an injection, that is injection reteplase, for dissolving the clot if it is there in the coronary arteries. And we could see him with a significant edema of the right lower limb.
However, at exactly 9:52 a.m., which is 7:22 a.m. Kenyan time, Odinga breathed his last.
In spite of our very sincere, very continued CPR and other measures, we couldn't make him survive. So we are very sorry to inform that he is no more with us.
Moments later, a video showing his body being wheeled out of the ICU to the hospital morgue for preservation was captured. The doctors saying Odinga had been battling multiple underlying conditions.
He was a diabetic, hypertensive, chronic kidney disease patient. He had right lower limb DVT, for which he was put on IVC filter. And recently he had a thin subdural hematoma. Last Saturday when it was done, that was almost very thin.
Odinga's body, which was put in a simple coffin, was later in the evening moved into a waiting hospital ambulance and transported to Kerala Medical College, where a Kenyan team, which is currently en route to India, will pick and repatriate it to Kenya. Emmanuel Toh, Citizen TV.
The burial of the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga will be held on Sunday at his Opoda farm home in Bondo, the county of Siaya. A state funeral committee chaired by the Deputy President, Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, and co-chaired by Odinga's brother, Oburu Odinga, Wednesday, followed by a state funeral service at the Nyayo National Stadium on Friday.
Good afternoon, fellow Kenyans. Good evening. I take this opportunity to welcome you to this press briefing by the National Committee on the state funeral of the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Fellow Kenyans, as you're aware, today His Excellency President William Ruto made a presidential proclamation announcing the passing on of the former Prime Minister of Kenya and leader of ODM, the Honorable Raila Odinga. The President announced a number of decisions arising out of earlier meetings which were convened during the day, first with the family of our departed leader, later on with the National Security Council, variations and consultations. It has been a state funeral of the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga be established. It is also important to reiterate that the government of Kenya has decided to give the Honorable Raila Odinga a state funeral, and that is why this committee has been established. The committee will be co-chaired by the Deputy President and the Honorable Senator Dr. Oburu Oginga, the elder brother of our departed leader. The other members of this committee from the Cabinet: CS Wycliffe Oparanya, CS for Cooperatives and MSMEs; CS Soipan Tuya, CS for. From the ODM party, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, the governor of Kisumu County, Governor Gladys Wanga, who is also the national chairperson of ODM, Governor James Orengo of Siaya, Governor Abdulswamad Sharif Nasir of Mombasa, and Governor Simba Arati of Kisii. From the Senate, Minority Leader Senator Justice Stewart Mazayo and Senator Godfrey Otsotsi. From the National Assembly, the Minority Whip Junet Mohammed, Minority Leader and former Minority Whip Junet Mohammed, the current Minority Whip Millie Odhiambo, Dr. James Nyikal, Dr. Otiende Amolo, and Dr. Lillian Gogo. The secretary to the committee will be the Principal Secretary for Internal Security and National Administration, Dr. Raymond Amolo. It is also important to note that the government has dispatched a high-level team consisting of government officials, family, and party officials to travel this evening to India to retrieve and bring back home the remains of our departed leader. That team already has been announced by the President. It is led by the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. It has members of the Cabinet. It has members of the party, governors, and other senior officials and family members. And therefore, what has been decided is to share responsibilities. So some of you may be asking why so and so not part of this. So we have shared responsibilities. Some are helping us to go and do that important task, and the others have been left behind to speed up the arrangements for the next steps. His Excellency the President has declared 7 days of mourning, and the flags will fly at half-mast for the next 7 days within the Republic of Kenya and all the diplomatic missions abroad. It is expected that we will move very quickly in the next few hours and few days for the reason which has been communicated to us by the family of the late Prime Minister following consultations between the family and the family lawyer. We have been advised as a committee by the family that it was the wish of the Honorable Raila Odinga to be buried within the shortest time possible following his demise. And the family has informed this committee that that timeline is 72 hours. The family has also advised the committee that given that the Prime Minister died outside the country, and notwithstanding the very short period within which this process must be concluded, we are advised that the family and the ex-committee will give respect to the wishes of the late Prime Minister as far as possible, but at the same time accommodate any other nuances and contexts that are important, considering the family values and the community and society values for which the Honorable Raila Odinga stood for. In that connection, it has been decided Therefore, we will have an expedited process that balances the wishes of the departed Prime Minister, the wishes of his family, but also the community and other imperatives that must be taken into context. In that regard, it is expected that the aircraft that has left Nairobi a few hours ago will make touchdown in Mumbai at a ground time of 2 hours and make a turnaround to arrive in Nairobi approximately 8:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. Upon arrival, the body will be received at the airport by His Excellency the President, members of the family, and other officials, escorted to leave.
Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga a fitting send-off on Sunday. Ahead of it, President William Ruto today from State House in Nairobi announced 7 days of national mourning and the state funeral that will be accorded the former lawmaker and Prime Minister. Here is what the President said during the address from State House.
It is with deep sorrow that I inform the nation of the passing on of the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, our former Prime Minister, Kenya's foremost statesman, and one of Africa's greatest sons. Kenya, Africa and the world mourn the passing on of a giant of democracy and a tireless warrior, justice, equity, and freedom. He endured in a generation leader. Gets over our democratic landscape. He was a colossus of Kenya's modern politics, an indomitable warrior. In our struggle for freedom and prosperity, and a statesman of boundary of uncommon courage, a pan-African above power and self-gain, an unceasing servant of the people of Kenya. I extend my deepest condolences to Mama Ida, his children, Rosemary, Raila Jr., and Winnie, the entire Odinga family, led by my brother, Oburu Oginga. To the leadership and members of Orange Democratic Movement, and to all Kenyans who share in this immense and immeasurable loss. In honor of the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga's extraordinary contribution to our nation, I have declared a 7-day period of national mourning during which the national flag shall fly at half-mast across the Republic of Kenya and in all our missions abroad. As a mark of respect, I have postponed all my public engagements for the coming days, and I ask all other public servants and leaders to do the same so that we can join the nation in this period of mourning and deep reflection. Our former Prime Minister, Raila Amolo Odinga, shall be accorded a state funeral with all attendant honors. In consultation with the family, a committee to be co-chaired by the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki, and the Siaya Senator Oburu Odinga has been set up to coordinate the funeral arrangements. At the same time, the Government of India, at the request of the Government of Kenya, has offered to facilitate the repatriation of the remains of our former Prime Minister. Consequently, a delegation comprising government officials and family members, led by Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, is leaving immediately for India to facilitate proper organization in the repatriation of the remains of our brother, the Honorable Raila Odinga. Other members of the delegation are Cabinet Secretaries Kipchumba Murkomen, Hassan Joho, and other ministers, National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, Minority Leader Junet Mohammed, and other members of the Odinga family, Jaoko Oburu Odinga, Kevin Obio Oginga, and others. And Mama Aida herself, the family has finally decided that she will join those who will be going to recover the remains of the Honorable Raila Odinga. Fellow patriots, we have lost a beacon of courage, a tower of principle, and a father of our democracy. Let us come together as he always urged us to do, not as rivals, but as brothers and sisters bound. And the lessons impacted by Right Honorable Raila Odinga's life, work, ideas, and example. In a political career spanning decades, Raila Amolo Odinga offered a compelling model of principled politics. And at a critical moment in our nation's journey, he always put Kenya first before individual or personal interest. May his soul rest in eternal peace. May God comfort his family. May God bless Kenya.
The committee set up by President William Ruto to oversee the repatriation of the body of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has left the country this evening for Mumbai, India. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi is leading the Kenyan delegation comprising of cabinet secretaries, the parliamentary leadership and the ODM party officials. The team is expected to arrive in India later tonight, from where they will receive the body of the late Prime Minister and jet back to the country on Thursday, as communicated by the chair of the committee for the burial, the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki. The demise of the former Prime Minister, Kenyans gathered in large numbers at the home of the former Prime Minister in Karen shortly after news of his death was made public. Thousands of mourners arrived to pay their last respects, with many saying that they had lost a true leader and a strong voice in the country's politics. Some described Raila Amolo Odinga as a guiding light whose absence has left a deep void in Kenya's political arena. The political leadership, including President William Ruto and former President, condolences and share in the grief. Melita Oletenges has that report.
Moments after the shocking news of the death of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga broke, thousands of mourners began flocking to his residence in Kerarapon, Karen. By 8 a.m., the compound was full of grief-stricken citizens as the news spread rapidly across the country. Among the first to arrive was President William Ruto, accompanied by Deputy President Kithure Kindiki. Several ODM party loyalists and close political allies of Odinga also visited to condole with Mama Ida Odinga and the Odinga family. The atmosphere was heavy with sorrow. Many mourners wept, overwhelmed by emotions, struggling to come to terms with the loss of a leader who to them was more than just a politician. He was Baba.
This is not happening, man. Without Baba, we are not able, bana. Tafadhali. Kenya nadhomba Kenya wenzangu walai. Sasa hivi nakaa mimi siamini kitu imefanyika. Siamini, niko kwa ndoto. Niko Karen, nimekaa katikati ya Karen, naenda kuangalia hivi nyuma, naangalia watu wengi wamejazana hapa. Kwa nini inaendelea? Baba ametuacha. Kama ametuacha ukweli, wakuja hivi. Lazima niangalie pale ameenda.
Papa ametuacha hali mbaya. Kwa sasa hii papa ametuacha ile hali mbaya. Hatujui tunaanzia wapi, tunamalizia wapi. Sisi wakaachi tumepaki bila papa. Hatujui tunaanza wapi, tunamalizia wapi.
Juu saa hii hata kuna roho ya kuongea. Kama mimi ni chairman ya kibira ya maandamano, mimi saa hii hakuna kitu tutasema. Utasema tu pole, Mungu tunajua bila umechukua Raila.
At around 11 a.m., Mama Ida Odinga briefly addressed the mourners, urging them to remain calm. She was surrounded by close family and Raila Odinga's close allies. Throughout the day, leaders streamed into the Odinga family home, each one paying tribute to a man they hailed as selfless, courageous and unwavering in his stand and style of leadership. In the evening, former President Uhuru Kenyatta condoled with the Odingas, accompanied by former First Lady Margaret Kenyatta.
We have worked very closely, as you know, in the last election. I was always beside him. I'm lost in what I can really speak about him. For those who knew him well, he was a very warm personality, very kind, very engaging. I've lost a friend.
He's been a friend for a long time, mentored me, I think, is the reason why I got into politics. And I think his words of wisdom were patience, that you be patient to lead, and that in unity a community thrives.
He's the only person who could tolerate my madness, even with my crazy hair, with everything. He is so beyond my hair. He is so beyond my cantankerousness. You know, he could see that what we are trying to do is to bring the Kenyans together.
Kenyans must remember that a statesman is a person who does not think about himself. He thinks about the nation and the people more than anything else. So that is the spirit that he has left behind. As Kenyans, we must unite around his principles that he stood firm.
Burial preparations commenced immediately as the nation braces for what is expected to be a large turnout in the days ahead. Mourners continue to gather at the Kerarapon home, united in grief and remembrance for the man they fondly called Baba. As curtains fall on one of Kenya's most enigmatic leaders of all time, his death has come as a rude shock for his supporters, who now claim no one can fill the shoes he has left behind. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV at Kerarapon, Karen.
And thousands of residents thronged the streets of Kisumu, Migori and Homa Bay counties to mourn and pay their respects to the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Heaping praise on the former Prime Minister and the lawmaker, the locals also expressed the fear of uncertainty regarding the political future of the region, which was largely influenced by his political persona. Laura Otieno has that report.
By 10 a.m. Wednesday, Shortly after the information of the death of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, the streets were filled. Mourners carrying twigs and placards. Others were tongue-tied, the tears expressing what words failed to capture. In spite of the difference in expression of grief, the common ground was the fear of tomorrow.
Vile nilisikia maneno ya baba, sikusikia vizuri, nilisikia kama ndoto na nikakuja kitao nikajua ni ukweli. Niko na usoni sana hata sijui nifanye aje. Alikuwa anatupea amani. Kama inji inaenda vibaya, Raila ndiye alikuwa inaleta peace kwa inji.
Asante kwa muda Raila amemaliza hapa duniani, lakini ametuacha na huzuni kabisa. Kwa maana Raila akiongea hivi, unasikia tu akiongea, utarudi nyuma. Sasa hiyo aende tu polepole vile ameenda.
In Homa Bay town, businesses came to a standstill on Wednesday morning. Distraught residents took to the streets mourning Odinga.
Until now, we call it Dark Wednesday because everything has been stopped in the town. Everyone is mourning for Raila, and we are calling everyone to have just 1 minute for the respect of Raila Amolo Odinga.
The residents expressing fear of a turbulent political sea following the exit of the ODM chief.
We don't bring issues here every now, here and there because of political reasons. I know we have political differences, but let us come together because this thing has happened. And we must take things as easy as possible.
My word is just to tell our people that we be united and remain specifically where Raila Amolo Odinga left us, and that is under broad-based government.
As they await the next steps, the streets are awash with grief. For some, it is the end of an era. For others, it is the beginning of an uncertain path after decades under the guidance of the political father figure of the Nyanza region. Laura Otieno, Citizen.
In Nairobi County, hundreds of locals poured into the streets on Wednesday morning, bringing business to standstill minutes after the news of the passing on of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga hit the airwaves. Many, mostly young people carrying twigs, walked across the different streets of the capital, screaming in disbelief, with some visibly struggling to hold back their tears. Jimmy Mbogo was in the midst of the crowd and along the streets of Nairobi and had the following report.
Wednesday, the 15th of October 2025, will remain a dark day for hundreds of Nairobi residents who flooded the streets of Nairobi to mourn the passing of opposition figure Raila Amolo Odinga. A towering figure in Kenya's political landscape whose influence spanned more than 4 decades. In song, dance and drama, they poured out their feelings. From major city avenues draped in black, orange and the Kenyan flags, songs of sorrow and freedom echoed through the capital as the mourners chanted Baba Baba, the name they affectionately used to describe the man who many saw as their savior in the political arena.
Baba will be remembered as a very selfless person who used almost the entire of his life to fight for the common mwananchi. Those people that you are seeing demonstrating here, they are doing this because of the legacy that Baba left behind.
Nani atatutetea sisi kama wana Kenya? Manake kama kuna ugumu, Raila ndio anatusaidianga. Sasa nataka nijue Raila ni miraa, anafichwa alafu tunaletewa habari yeye amekufa.
I have lost my dad, I have lost my father, I have lost my parent and my political dad. May his soul rest in peace.
Businesses in the Central Business District slowed to a crawl as traffic came to a standstill, with motorists in some parts of the city being forced to turn around, fearing for their safety. With the streets around Parliament Road and Harambee Avenue being filled by the sea of humanity who sought to condone with fellow Kenyans in the only way they knew best.
Na colleague wangu akaniambia Raila amekufa, singeenda hata kazi, nikamwambia tu boss wangu it can never happen. So as Kenyans, venye unatuona hapa sisi ni mayatima, baba ndiye alikuwa baba yetu. Kama hakuna baba, hakuna Ruto.
Tunajua sasa tuna mourn, hata Nairobi tumesema there's no work as usual. Na niko hapa na jeshi la baba. Leo tunasema tunaomboleza in peaceful. Na hii mambo jeshi wananiambia niwatumie message ya kwamba sherehe ndio tumeanza. Baba lazima tujue ako wapi hata kama kwa India. Sherehe tutakuwa napiga shughuli kila siku mpaka siku yenye baba atazikwa, au sio?
For many, these moments mark not just the end of an era, but the closing of a chapter of a lifelong struggle for a more equitable Kenya, a dream that they believed only Raila could make happen. They say when a big tree falls, the birds scatter. And for Raila Odinga supporters, this saying has never been truer. The death of Raila now leaves them at crossroads, unsure of which direction to take politically. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV.
And Kenyans from across the country, the 47 counties, are united in mourning the passing of a man whose name is deeply woven into the fabric of Kenya's political history. To millions of Kenyans, Raila Amolo Odinga was not just a leader, but a movement, a patriot, a symbol of resilience, and the father of devolution. And as Emily Chebet details in the following report, the former Prime Minister, fondly known as Baba, Ortinga, Jacom, remains for many a lasting symbol of democracy and unyielding hope for a better Kenya.
The news of the passing on of Kenya's political enigma spread like wildfire across the nation. Majority of Kenyans receiving the sad news with shock and disbelief. Hundreds taking to the streets in Kisii town to mourn a man they say was significant in their regional politics.
Papa ndio alikuwa kiongozi, akisema kitu imekuwa mara moja. Akikataa amekataa. Sasa waje tumuombe Mungu amuweke mazuri, arari na vizuri.
Kwa mzee mwenyewe amenyamerara. Pole sana, lakini amelara na ametuelekeza njia, na njia yenye anatuelekeza ilikuwa bado iko.
In Nakuru town, the residents joined in mourning the former Prime Minister, eulogizing him as a cross-generational leader.
He has been a good man. He has fought for us. Sisi wenyezi kama mayouth, si as the Gen Zs. Tumekuwa na a spokesman kwa government.
Wakenya watamkumbuka kama mtetezi wa wanyonge, mtetezi wa haki za kibinadamu, na vile vile mtetezi wa kuhakikisha kwamba demokrasia katika taifa la Kenya inapata sehemu yake.
As the national leader he was, the life and legacy of the ODM leader was celebrated across the country, with residents of Busia expressing deep shock at the news of his demise.
Taifa tunalia, sisi maskini tunalia. Ni nani atakaye tusaidia sasa? Tumebaki upweke, hatuna mtu wa kutusaidia. Maombi yetu ni ya kwamba Mungu atusaidie, atupatie mtu kama yeye.
Ngome zote za ODM ambazo Raila alikuwa mfalme, tunaomba tafadhali Raila atembezwe, aletwe hapa Busia, watu wa Busia hapa tumuone, ili tuthibitisha kwamba Raila Amolo Odinga ameaga dunia.
Tungeenda kwa waganga wote, tungechanga pesa yote. Raila ende hata Amerika huko, tibiwa huko. Baba enda salama Raila. Busia tutakulia sana Raila.
The residents of Garissa eulogizing Raila as a patriot and a peacemaker, a leader that prioritized the nation more than himself.
Tunaomba amani iweze kudumu kati yetu, kwa sababu Mungu alimleta Raila ili aweze kutuonyesha njia, na Mungu ana sababu ya kumchukua, na Mungu ndiye anaweka kiongozi.
We really don't know what will happen because he was the glue that glued us together as the people of Kenya. He helped us to maintain peace. He helped us to live together.
From the coastal region through Rift Valley to the western part of the country, Kenyans from all walks of life found their own unique ways to mourn the political giant who defined generations.
Sisi tuna uchungu sana. Na uchungu sana na kifo cha baba. Tulikuwa tunapenda baba sana, na bila baba sioni kama tunaenda mahali.
Tarehe 10 mwezi wa 10 baba ameweka na kuja Mombasa ODM. Tulirauka asubuhi sana kama wafuasi wake. Tumevaa jezi tukaanza kuuliza, hatuoni Jacom.
Hii kifo Raila kwangu mimi kwanza imenigusa sana, sababu Raila kusema kweli amesaidia Wakenya sana.
Has brought and enlarged the democratic space within the country. He has fought hard to ensure that the citizens' voice is heard and that democracy in Kenya is enhanced.
Amekuwa katika ulingo wa kisiasa kwa miaka mingi, na pia tu amechangia katika mambo mengi kuhusu ujenzi wa taifa, sana sana katika kukuza demokrasia.
Na sisi huyu baba ametupigania Kenya hii. Hata saizi vitu zinafanyika Kenya hii kama freedom of speech, hizi zote ni baba Raila Amolo Odinga ameleta.
Raila unaenda
namna gani? Unaenda namna gani? Unatuacha namna gani sasa kama Wakenya? Sisi tumekujua wewe ndio mteteaji ya watu.
As the nation mourns, one truth echoes across Kenya. Raila Amolo Odinga may have fallen silent, but his voice, his ideals and his dream for a just and united nation will live for generations. Emily Chebet, Citizen.
Royal Media Services Chairperson Dr. S.K. Macharia has mourned his longtime friend, the late Raila Amolo Odinga, describing him as an incredible statesman who made immense sacrifices for the country. Dr. Macharia, who stood by Odinga throughout his political career, said he has lost not only a friend, but a family member, a man he considered a confidant and a brother. Here is Gatete Njoroge.
In his condolence message following the passing of his dear friend, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, Royal Media Services Chairman Dr. S.K. Macharia expressed deep sorrow, saying, and I quote, "Words cannot describe what I feel today. I am utterly devastated. Raila Odinga was not just a brother and a friend. He was part of my life. He was a man I deeply cared for, and a leader whose attributes always appealed to the depths of my beliefs. My family and I have lost a family member, a great friend and a confidant." He further says that Kenya has lost an incredible statesman and a patriot. Royal Media Services Chairman says Raila lived a life of enormous personal sacrifices. From jail to exile and back to jail, then the streets where his eyes and body suffered damage. According to him, Raila Odinga paid more than his share of his sacrifice for Kenya. Dr. S.K. Macharia adds that it's through Raila Odinga that Kenya got a new constitution, devolution, and the independence of judiciary. His wish as a friend is that his spirit may continue guiding the unrelenting quest for good, accountable and transparent governance in Kenya. Dr. S.K. Macharia, in mourning Odinga, says the days ahead in Kenya will not and will never be the same without Raila Odinga. He concludes with a message to Mama Ida Odinga, her children and Kenyans to march on in the collective journey and in the same path Raila would always wish for all of us. He describes his death as a loss to the nation. The friendship between Dr. S.K. Macharia, Raila Odinga and the larger Jaramogi Oginga Odinga family has been there for over 3 decades, with the most recent engagement being in Siaya County 2 days ago, when Dr. S.K. Macharia joined Siaya Senator Oburu Odinga for a boda empowerment function.
This morning, I spoke to Raila where he is, and yesterday I had also rang him and we spoke.
The friendship knew no boundaries, as Dr. S.K. Macharia went all out to support Odinga's political ambitions, describing him as a selfless leader.
Raila has lived a life of selfless struggle for a better Kenya. Raila is a true son of his father. He has always championed greater causes than self. He fought for multipartyism and paid the price by spending 8 years in detention. He came out stronger to fight for more reforms, including a new constitution.
Their closeness was beneficial to the country. A case in point was in July 2021, when Dr. S.K. Macharia hosted artists from across the country and Raila Odinga at his home in Gatanga, Murang'a County. It was at this event where issues concerning artists' welfare was discussed and implemented during retired President Uhuru Kenyatta regime. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
And leaders from across the political divide led by Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, the party's Liberation People's Movement leader Martha Karua, and Chief Justice Martha Koome have mourned the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga with deep sadness. Setting aside their political differences, they paid tribute to Odinga as a selfless statesman who dedicated his life to Kenya's second liberation and the pursuit of justice and reforms. Willie Lusige has that report.
Leaders from across the country have paid heartfelt tribute to the late Raila Amolo Odinga, hailing his lifelong struggle for justice, democracy and reforms that forever changed Kenya's political landscape. Former Deputy President and DCP leader Rigathi Gachagua eulogized Odinga as a towering pillar of democracy and a gallant hero of Kenya's second liberation, a man who stood firm against repressive regimes despite torture and imprisonment. Martha Karua, a leader of the PNP party and Raila Odinga's 2022 presidential running mate, praised their over 30-year journey together in pursuit of a free and just Kenya. Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila's running mate in the 2013 and 2017 presidential elections, lauded his lifelong sacrifice and commitment to leadership. Kalonzo cut short his UK trip to return home and mourn his close ally and friend. DAPK party leader Eugene Wamalwa saluted Odinga's firm defense of devolution and his instrumental role in delivering the 2010 constitution. Former Interior CS Fred Matiang'i eulogized Odinga, highlighting how through decades of struggle and public service, he remained unbowed in his conviction that freedom, democracy and justice must be the pillars of our republic. Chief Justice Martha Koome said without Raila Odinga, Kenya would have not achieved the far-reaching democratic, legal and judicial reforms it enjoys today. Kotu Secretary General Francis Atoli, a close friend of Raila, described him as a symbol of unity and a mentor whose leadership molded generations of Kenya politicians. Director of Public Prosecution Renson Igonga, hailing Raila Odinga's consistent decision to challenge presidential election results through the courts, which set a strong example of respect for the rule of law and strengthened public trust in Kenya's judicial institutions. Other local leaders who worked with Raila in previous and current governments, including governors, senators and members of parliament, have eulogized Raila Odinga's appeal of Kenya politics and a mentor who nurtured many of the country's current leaders.
Honorable Raila was a statesman par excellence. Honorable Raila was a father figure and a mentor to many.
As a country, indeed, we have lost. But this is a time for us to come together and mourn this great man.
Willie Lusige, Citizen TV.
The world has joined Kenya in mourning the untimely demise of its former Prime Minister and ODM party leader Raila Odinga. Global leaders have eulogized the late Prime Minister as a towering beacon of democracy and the example of selflessness, terming him a leader who has put his country above personal ambitions. And as Mary Mwoki now details, the former Prime Minister has been termed as a champion of democracy and social justice, not just in Kenya, but with footprints across the continent.
The world is mourning a fallen giant of democracy and good governance, a man who for decades stood at the heart of Kenyan politics, forging alliances, breaking coalitions and reconciling with former foes. There was no rivalry too deep, no wedge too big that Raila Amolo Odinga could not mend if the country's stability demanded it. The U.S. Embassy in Nairobi has eulogized Raila as a champion of Kenya's development and success as a country. His longtime friend, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, says he was a towering statesman and a cherished friend of India. I had the privilege of knowing him closely since my days as Chief Minister of Gujarat, and our association continued over the years. He had a special affection for India, our culture, values and ancient wisdom. This was reflected in his efforts to strengthen Kenya-India ties. Tanzania President eulogized him by saying, "We have lost a brilliant leader, a global African, a peace-loving and solution seeker whose influence and love were not only in Kenya, but in East Africa and Africa at large. This tragedy is not just for Kenya, but for all of us." Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud also paid tributes to Odinga, terming him a towering statesman whose legacy of democracy, justice and public service will endure. Somalia stands in solidarity with Kenya in this moment of grief. The AU chairman Mahmoud Ali Yusuf eulogized the former prime minister, saying, Raila Odinga was a towering figure in Kenya's political life and a steadfast champion of democracy, good governance and people-centered development. His decades-long commitment to justice, pluralism and democratic reform left an indelible mark not only on Kenya but across the African continent. In Ethiopia, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali extended condolences on behalf of his government, calling Odinga a patriot and a leader whose contributions to democracy will be remembered across Africa. Dr. Wakne Gebeyehu, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, described Odinga as one of Africa's most iconic sons, whose lifelong education to justice and unity inspired generations. From Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema hailed Odinga as a towering advocate for democracy, saying his legacy will endure long after his passing. Djibouti's President Ismail Omar Guelleh also paid tribute, calling Odinga a visionary leader whose voice for justice resonated far beyond his homeland. Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
And the death of Raila Odinga has brought the curtains down on the political career of a man known for his decades-long fight for democracy and a five-time presidential contender. Odinga has left a towering political legacy that shaped modern Kenya and its politics, but also a more intimate legacy as a man who valued family, justice, and fairness.
Way before he became the towering political figure that he was, not just in Kenya but the region and the continent as well, Raila Amolo Odinga was first a family man. His journey on earth began on the 7th of January 1945 at the Anglican Missionary Society Hospital in Maseno in the then Kisumu district. He was born to the late first Vice President of the country, Mzee Jaramogi Odinga, and the late Mama Mary Juma Odinga. He was born into a polygamous family and was one of 17 children of Jaramogi Oginga. His search for education started at the Kisumu Union Primary School before transitioning to Maranda School. In 1965, Raila won a scholarship to study in East Germany. 5 years later, he graduated with an engineering diploma, today's equivalent of a master's degree, from the Otto von Guericke University. Upon his return to Kenya, he landed at the University of Nairobi for a teaching job. He would also later establish a manufacturing empire, the Standard Processing Equipment Construction and Erection, later East African Spectre, dealing in LPG cylinders and related apparatus. During his time at the university, Raila met Ida Onyango. They married in 1973, forming a formidable partnership that has weathered the extraordinary challenges of Kenyan politics, including long periods of detention. Ida, a former teacher, has been his unwavering political and emotional anchor. That political path that Raila has walked his entire life began as a tireless campaign for social justice and multi-party democracy during the autocratic regime of the late President Daniel Arap Moi. That pro-democracy activism came at a great personal cost. He was imprisoned without trial multiple times in the 1980s, spending a total of about 8 years in detention. He also briefly sought asylum in Norway in 1991. But that high price did not deter the man who came to be known as Baba of the enigma of Kenyan politics.
Wakenya hoye! Wakenya hoye! Kenya hoye! Leo hii ni siku muhimu zaidi kwa Wakenya wote.
His political run has seen him earn his place in the annals of Kenyan and lately regional history. He served in the legislature as MP and in the executive as Minister and Prime Minister. But perhaps his most enduring legacy was his role in sealing two of Kenya's most important reforms, multi-partyism democracy in 1991 and a new constitution in 2010. He also made an indelible mark in the country's history as a presidential candidate 5 times, as well as having successfully challenged a presidential election. In his later years in politics, Raila looked beyond Kenya, serving the continent as infrastructure envoy and unsuccessfully seeking the AUC's chairmanship. Yet, in the midst of the heavy political burden and toil, his family has remained at the core of his existence. The Odinga family has often described him as a deeply affectionate man who valued laughter, storytelling, and family dinners, balancing the harsh demands of public life with the warmth of his home. Now that family that formed the backbone of his support will be left with memories of the times they spent with their father, but also with a man who became a father or baba to an entire nation. He is survived by his widow, Ida, his 3 surviving children, Rosemary, Junior, and Winnie, and several grandchildren, aside from his extended family, including politicians Oburu Odinga and Ruth Odinga, amongst others. Brenda Wanga, Citizen.
Of the referendum in 2005, one of the architects of the ODM party, Ahmed, lovely having you here. And on a consequential day in Kenya's political calendar, David Osiani is a former Chief Administrative Secretary, served in the Kenyatta government between 2018 and 2022. So lovely having you here, much appreciated, given what has happened today. First to you, Ahmed, what is the fitting vocabulary to describe the man?
I think if we didn't have him, we would have to invent him. I think that what is indicative today of all the discourse that we have seen about the demise or the death or the passing away of the Prime Minister is not a signature about the death of the Prime Minister himself, but an angst about the country and where we are going and where we came from. If we are going to mourn, and we should mourn our Prime Minister, and a leader who has brought singularly, in many ways, some of the most profound changes we have in this country, it says something about us. It says that we have lack of institutions and we rely on individuals more than we rely on our institutions. It is proper and fair for the country to mourn a person who has spent years upon years in jail, who stood up at the darkest moments in this country's history. You know, during the dictatorships that we had here, they were probably equal in brutality and in fear with the colonial system that we had in this country. It just had black faces. But the whites had gone, and the process and the teeth and the pain and the heartlessness of the system was just taken over by another group of people. And I think that it is very fortunate that we had him as a leader in this country, and he towered highly. He towered more than most of the leaders we had in this country. And I also think that it's a bit of a, I think it's a bit of a topsy-turvy thing to mourn him in this way. And then while he was alive, we never let him become president in this country. And I think that's important for us to say.
Okay, David.
Let us spell the word patriotism. The letters that spell the word patriotism are R-A-I-L-A. And if you ever sought for the synonym of patriotism in Kenya, it would be Raila Odinga. You point to me which of the pivotal moments of our political history does not have the fingerprint and the mark of Raila Odinga except independence. I will name all of them, and each one of them has Raila Odinga behind it, whether it is the clamor for the expansion for our civic and democratic spaces in the 90s, it has Raila Odinga. Whether it is the movement from single-party rule into the multi-party democracy that we enjoyed, it has Raila Odinga's name on it. Whether it is the ousting of the 24-year rule of President Moi, it has Raila Odinga's name on it. Whether it is the new Constitution 2010 that started with the movement in 2005, you know, on the referendum, it has Raila Odinga's name on it. Yea, even as recent as last year, when we were literally on the brink of precipice as a nation at the Gen Z revolt, he looked beyond the moment and said, I shall step in and salvage the nation. People may have different views and opinions, but here is a man who was way too magnanimous, stepping behind from time to time. And when you speak about patriotism, I know only Raila Odinga as the man who constantly referenced the national anthem, constantly spoke about the words of the national anthem, attempted every day to live by those words. I do not know any other politician, alive or buried, who cherished the country so much as to sacrificially step back oftentimes, even when victory was his, and even when he had the right to stand up and say, we shall ban the nation. I sometimes look at the politicians who are currently, you know, clamoring towards 2027, and I ask, can any of these men, if they lost an election like Raila did, if their victory was robbed like Raila's was, is any of these men able to step back and say, the country is larger than the desire of my opponent who has stolen my victory? Raila Amolo.
I don't think that this is the time for us to talk about what's obvious.
Which is?
Which is what my friend on the right is speaking about. I think this is a time for us to rally around this country. I think
which is what I'm doing, Ahmed. Which is what I'm doing, because unless we understand and let the country know, Raila in his perspective, there are very many people, Ahmed, who do not understand that Raila, as a son of a vice president, of a former vice president, was 8 years in jail, clamoring for multi-party democracy.
Well, the father was alive.
While the father was alive, how many people, he wasn't vice president, he was a former vice president. How many people, Ahmed, do you know, vice presidents who have served, whether it's Mudia Warwick, Alonzo Musyoka, PCS, who do you know whose son would be in jail and yet their father or even themselves could just go and negotiate? Who do you know who out of principle leaves the party started by his own father, Ford Kenya, and says, I do not agree with you anymore. This is a party my father started. I feel we have divergence of opinion, and so I will resign, principle. Go and start and run on another party, principle. Seek a fresh mandate. You have too many people, disenfranchised, unhappy today, but because they lack principle, they are unable to go and seek fresh mandate and say, no, I used to believe in party A. It no longer represents my vision, and so I'll seek a mandate on party. So that's the man we are more.
I worked with him, so I know all that. But so my point is that I think the proper thing for us to do is to find a common ground in the country today, and the history of the Prime Minister will come out, and the debates will continue for a very long time. But I think the appropriate thing today is not just to historicize him or to contextualize him, and it's just to feel empathy with the people of this country.
You will not dictate how we mourn.
Let me finish.
How I mourn? No, you will not dictate.
So
you mourn as you will.
Can I finish what I say?
We both worked with him.
It's not a debate.
You will not dictate how I mourn.
It's not a debate. Let me just say what I have to say, and then you can say. It's my view, he has his view. Let each view come out. So I think, for me, I think that the country is in mourning. And it's bitter, you can feel it. Everybody's feeling bitter. I was very close to him, and I've been feeling sad the whole day. It's like you've lost someone in your family. But I don't think there's a debate about him right now, right? All the political class you saw today was at the State House. People, the most important thing that people want to do is to get a dignified send-off for the Prime Minister. And we will have enough time to talk about the issues that are at the center of our country's political economy. And he's there, right in the middle. One of the somber things that I remember, you know, this man has a human side. that not a lot of people have seen. Yeah. But I was privy to it for a long time. And one of the things is, I remember one day in a meeting of the National Executive, I think, and he kept on putting a handkerchief in his eyes. So he kept on doing this. So I didn't understand why he was doing that. So I went and got a handkerchief, pair of clean from my car, and I came and I gave it to him in the middle of everybody, and I said, use that. Later on, I asked him, why are you doing that? He said, there was no sunlight in prison. They were not giving me enough sunlight, so the ducts in my eyes just exploded and they could not be fixed. So every time, the tears would just come down. So there's a lot of suffering that he's went through, and it's very poignant. But I think that to dignify the man today is that every Kenyan knows the template of the divisions that we have and which side he represented. I stood with him. So did many people. But I think that people have to read the room. They have to understand the mood of the country. And the mood of the country today is that we want a peaceful, dignified, honorable send-off by our republic. And I also believe we have to rally around our president. That's I'm one of the strongest critics of the president, as you know. But I think this is not a time to criticize anything or anyone or anything about the Prime Minister. And I just want to finish with that we are all adults, and it is our job to tell the people of this country things in a way in which that they become somber and not angry. Because if we dredge up the history of this man, it is full of anger, and it is full of victory, it is full of defeats. And I think that we have to be grown up about it, and we have to rally around the president today because he's the leader of this country now, and give this man who has suffered for this country for so long a decent send-off, and then we can start tomorrow or day after the mourning period. My learned friend on the right can come and say the things that he wants to say.
That's true.
That's my view.
I like how Ahmed, when he says about the handkerchief, that does not historicize Raila. But when I say he spent 8 years, that historicizes him. But I agree with you. And as I express my grief, Ahmed, I need you to be very clear. I am the greatest supporters of the president in the way he has handled the old man in his last days as a dignified leader. And as I talk about him, it is to help understand the magnitude of the loss this country has suffered. Raila Odinga, as a family man, for example, has been one of the people, he would walk into podiums and every time say, I'm husband of one wife, and people would laugh. But whereas they would laugh, beneath that statement lay a very clear commitment to the unit of family. And Raila was a huge proponent for, gender equity. If you want to see the evidence of the work of Raila Odinga beyond just the appointments he would make, then look at the mentorship he has offered in the parts of Nyanza where he leads. Go to Homa Bay County, for example, where 4 ladies are elected, and not as women reps, today, including as a governor.
Lillian Gogo.
Yes, Dr. Ivo Barra, Gladys, and Millie Odhiambo. In one county, go to Kisumu, where Rosa Buyu is a sitting member of parliament as a lady. It means this is a person who really cherished the gender equity, and he spoke about it. And beyond that, Raila Odinga is the man who, when he got to the table to negotiated for the nation, not for tribe. I say this, look at the recent reorganizations and reappointments, whereas one would argue the Mount Kenya had their place at the table already. When he had a chance, he said, hey, my sister Karugo, come and serve as a principal secretary. And some of us had to sacrifice ambitions at the time for later. That's the man we mourn. And the loss of Raila Odinga is such a profound loss. It would be lost on people, for example, who use the southern and northern bypasses. That as Minister of Roads, Raila had to take personal responsibility. In Kisumu, at that time, when he was doing the roads, he had to bring down his brother's house for him to demonstrate, because he was having issues here. They were saying, hapana, Jaruo amekuja kuvunja vitu vyetu, and now those roads benefit all of us. Raila Odinga was a great statesman, and his loss today is a profound loss for the entire nation. I mourn with the country, I mourn with the continent, with the family. I feel for them. I am sad that we are here, but I know that in his loss, the lessons he leaves behind are too rich, and so they will immortalize him. Impact immortalizes him.
Ahmed, I know you want to come in. President Benjamin Mkapa, the late Tanzanian president, who was amongst the leaders who had mediated the post-election crisis in 2007, in his book mentions that it was until they had to get Odinga and Kibaki together that the talks had progressed, and specifically points out that other politicians, naming out categorical, the President William Ruto was then the Eldoret North MP, and Martha Karua, who was then the Gishugu Member of Parliament, who are placing childish obstacles on the pathway of peace. How will we get such consequential?
I think it's a legitimate question. I was there throughout all these negotiations. I was there from the very beginning until the very end. So I think that I'll leave that debate to my younger fellow here on the right.
I was not in the room.
My job.
I wasn't in the room. Please tell us you were in the room.
My job.
How consequential were those things?
I was in the room from day one. So I think the important thing, as part of journalism and broadcast media is concerned, in an event like this, what is important is the dignity of this country, the dignity of his role in creating this country and making it reach a certain level politically. And I think that it's very important today, as you saw the political leadership in this country, go to State House and talk about the dignified way in which we are supposed to handle the Prime Minister. I think that the debates about him and what happened and how it happened and why it happened, I was just speaking today to Dr. Mohammed Ishakia, who is our Chief of Staff at the Pentagon. The one thing that we all remember, and very poignant, he remembers and I remember, and many of the people who were there remember, was that he was a very simple human being.
True.
And he also had very simple tastes. And he was just a very common person who was driven by a tremendous amount of passion about this country and where it should go. And I think that the president today showed that, and I want to congratulate President. I cannot believe that it's going to come out of my mouth, but I want to congratulate the president and our commander-in-chief for the dignified and very respectful and very emotional way in which he has stood and discharged his duty as a president to our prime minister. And I think that this is maybe a new page, because we're at an end of an era. Well, there's one era that is gone, and there's a new era that is coming. And this new era that's becoming will bring forth many of the things that Mr. Odinga had put on the table for us as a nation. Lastly, I just want to say, and I want to appeal to the national consciousness of our people, to the national sentiments of our country, that all of us become very united in making sure that there is a dignified way in which, and the president has shown us the way, that the prime minister goes to his burial place, and we all then have to sit back and reflect on not only his life, but the life of the Republic while he was in the politics of this country, and while most of us gave our lives to his vision, because we shared that vision. I was in the room when I saw this country come to the edge. I was in the room, and I saw him bring it back. And it will come in a book. Dr. Musaki is also writing a book. I'm also writing a book. And we are witnesses to the history of this country. And it would be very wrong for the people who are in there not to write about their experiences and their feelings.
With him. No, that's true. I mean, as he alludes to the simplicity. You know, Raila was the man who was in a house in Kibera and would get along with the people, the common person on the ground, but also sit on the king's table. Yeah. And so he knew how to balance the two worlds with great poise and presence and calmness, and he would fit in. He didn't struggle to fit in. One time we were in a rally across the country, then he saw boiled maize, and I remember him asking on the loudspeaker, he forgot that the microphone was on. He said, Maurice, in Enobando, have you seen the maize, that boiled maize? Do you know, to someone to get it? He was a very simple man. But I also just want to thank God that this great man has rested peacefully. For a man who dangled and flirted with death and was in opposition most of his life, taking on regimes, going on the street, survived Moi, took on Kibaki, survived that, took on Uhuru, made friends, fought with President Ruto, became friends. And through these times, being really on the edge, for a man like that to have gotten to 80 years and to leave the scene honorably and peacefully is a great thing. We look forward to the president uniting the nation, as he has ably done at this time. I know emotions may run high. I saw them earlier in the day. And while it is right for emotions to run as far high as they could, they have to be tamed so that we bury Raila Odinga. Many people were surprised. Why is Raila Odinga saying, why is he going to be buried in such a short while? You know, in the Luo culture, Raila is what we call Ruoth. Ruoth is a king. And so in the old culture, Ruothi would take time. People would bring cows and grains, and people would mourn for days. But Raila, at the height of COVID, kept saying, I would love to change the culture among the Luo people, where so much money is spent towards the burial, and then after the funeral, people are left poor. And he expressed, when he dies, he wants to be buried in 72 hours, not once or twice, where I personally was. And so I think that also becomes quite something.
Yeah, okay. So Monica, we are still keeping an eye on the flight that is ferrying the delegation led by the Prime Cabinet Secretary. This is one of the most tracked. Abel, is it the most? Yeah, according to my team, this is the second most tracked flight, KQA 202, that is now flying over the Arabian Sea. Of course, it's a busy flight path, as you can see, before it lands in Mumbai. And to just give you some specifics about Mumbai, it's now 1:20, meaning that they are ahead by 2 hours and 30 minutes. So for them, it's Thursday already, 29 degrees Celsius before it touches down, and the busy flight pathway that the KQ Boeing A202 will be flying across over the Arabian Sea before it lands in Mumbai, and will be escorting back the body of the former Prime Minister. So this is the 3D version of the flight itself, which is flying over the Arabian Sea, that will be putting up shortly on your screens for the detailed attention that we have accorded this flight that has taken off from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. My team will be getting shortly to that. Monica, Abel and team who are working on that. Ahmed, yes.
I think to contemplate the useful thing, to contemplate the courageous thing, to contemplate to do something important is enough for a man's life. That's a guy called T.S. Eliot. It's very important for us to humanize the leader who has just passed on. Because if we don't humanize him, then he doesn't make any sense to the country. And if we put him in a place, even though we know that he was a titan in this country, we know that he's done all those sacrifices. We know the amount of time and space that he's using. I think it is more useful for us to humanize him and his struggle within this country. And one of the things about his humanity is, I remember one specific and very poignant thing was, he brought the buibui into bunge. You know, he has a way of saying, it was a very funny way of saying it, said, mimi nileta buibui kwa bunge. And it wasn't really about the buibui, it was about representation in this country. You know, in some areas in this country, there was no representation. There was no money going in. And I think that one of the things that we can remember him about, first and foremost, is that this constitution that we have. This constitution that we have is a product of struggles of groups, of social formations, of citizens and countries. But at the end of the day, there's someone who comes to symbolize it. You know, all these people, President Obama became president, but Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Douglas South, all the men and women of the African American community and other Americans who fought for civil rights and finally had someone from an African American ancestry to become a president of a country is people standing on shoulders of other people. And of course now the Prime Minister has come to symbolize those actors. And I think it is very important, and he himself said so while he was alive, is to humanize him is to give him even more credit. But to make him something that he is not is to take away from him what he was. And I think it is very important that all of us in this country, at these 7 days that we have, remember the memory and the dignity of Mr. Odinga in a way that makes our country much more, you know, able to deal with its history. I think that many of the people who are his age have now gone, the people who are struggling to get change in this country. And it is now the next generation that has to pick up the baton of the political party, pick up the baton of defending the Constitution, pick up the baton of trying to make our union in this country a better union. You know, the divisions that we have are so huge that I think it is a testament that we are still a country right next door in Somalia. One people, one nation, one language. And the white man left this country, he was asked, who do you think is going to survive? And he said, the Somali Republic is the one that's going to stand. And today it is at the doldrums of these divisions, because it never had a statesman who would soothe the angst and the divisions and the hurt of the people. There were only politicians who would divide them. And one of the things I can say about Mr. Odinga, the Prime Minister, is that he was a unifier. He was a unifier. I broke with him on the last part when he joined the broad-based government because I couldn't see why he wanted to join the broad-based government. And maybe tonight I have a better understanding of it because Mr. Odinga saw something and he leapt to it and said, no, if we leave it like this, something's going to go wrong. I might disagree with him. Yeah. I might feel a different way, which is very normal. But at the end of the day, he was the leader. And today, there is no leader. He's gone. And there are many, 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 many men and women who want to take up that role. So I think that before we talk about those issues, Ayub, I put it to you, is that this republic can feel healed, can feel mourned, after we take our time and pay the due respects to our Prime Minister. And after that, we can open the book on what he was not. And I think even in our own culture, we say, so which translates into saying that a man who is already dead, the only things you can talk about are the good things that he did. And I think that's very important.
No, I actually love that Raila's harshest critic in his last days has gotten a moment of, oh yeah, maybe he was right. And he truly was right. One of the, I have a cousin called Dan Kanokelo who, when we were burying Phoebe Asio, Raila Odinga made such a heavy, deep speech. And I remember at the time, my cousin saying, and I dismissing him quickly, he said, "This looks like a goodbye speech." Because in that speech, he spoke about why he decided to jump in and support President Ruto when the country was going to go down, giving examples of countries that had taken that route and never recovered from that route, stating that yes, the problems therein, the problems that we were speaking about were legitimate, but the solution to those problems were not the ones that were, it wasn't to be solved in the manner that would bring us down to a halt. In that speech, Raila Odinga spoke to the president and said, "We have veered off from Vision 2030. Mr. President, if our union is going to bear fruit, let's retrace our steps to the Vision 2030. He asked the president, let us recreate the NESC, the National Economic and Social Council, that was steering the economic issues of this country, led and chaired at the presidency. He was very categorical and it was very punchy. He spoke both in Luo and in English. But away from that, Raila Odinga was a hugely magnanimous man, very forgiving. He never had vendetta. I can dare say on this show, Raila is probably one of the most defamed and against whom people stated some of the most libelous things in this country. I have never seen a single case where Raila filed for defamation. He would just let it slide. He knew it was politics. He knew things would change. He knew quickly, it doesn't matter what you say today, tomorrow is very different, and the time span that we have on the political scene is very short. Raila was very, very magnanimous. One time, when I was with him in the UK, my good friend Silas Jakakimba had just attempted to run for Senate after Otieno Kajwang died. And so, Jakakimba moved away to a Farmers' Party of Kenya. Jakakimba had been his aide. When my friend Jakakimba moved away, he ran, and when he didn't succeed, Raila took him back in. Now, when we met in the UK, the ODM supporters in London wanted to lynch Jakakimba. And Raila asked them, "Where do you want Silas to go?" He literally asked them in Luo, which I cannot translate in English. He was that protective, and yet others saw this as a traitor because he looked beyond the simple things. Raila always looked back. How far have we come? He put men and women on the weighing scale, on a fair weighing scale. And if the good in you outdid the bad, then you were a good person. He forgave it and moved on and urged other people to move on. His contribution to this country is enormous. He cannot be forgotten. And I really hope that as we drive along the southern bypass, that the president would reconsider to name that bypass Raila Odinga bypass as a great contributor to that. You know, people don't even know things, the improvement of GDC that later would give the prominence that GDC has in our energy infrastructure today are things attributable to this great man. And so, yes, we are here to mourn him. We lay to rest a great man who impacted on people very, at a very personal level. I was there, not once or twice, in Kibera, as Raila sent truckloads of food from time to time. When you go to that community, Ayub, those people have lost, and one would say it was to just let people come for more. But he did it as duty. He knew our hands are not different. Some will make money today, some will not make it tomorrow, but all of us need to eat. So, and he never spoke about it. He never, ever spoke about it. So that's the man we've lost. Very great. Very
Ahmed,
huge.
before I come to you, this is also to update you on Kenya's consequential political day in its calendar, still also keeping an eye. Monica, this is where we are. Yes, this is the KQ flight that is ferrying the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, and the team that he is leading to Mumbai. It's the 3D vision. It seems not moving, but I believe we get back to the track so that we can see the altitude and the thousands of feet that this plane is. 5,599 people are tracking this flight live, and it's some 1 hour and 43 minutes, which is some 1,000. So number one worldwide tracked flight at the moment following the demise of the former Prime Minister. Now flying over the Arabian Sea, you can see the flight, the traffic of flight along that is over the Arabian Sea, and in 1.5 hours thereabout, it should be landing at Mumbai Airport. It's about 1,208 kilometers to the destination. That's according to Flight Radar 24. 5,000, the number seems to be climbing up. 717 aboard this flight. And the pictures you are seeing, the passengers who are aboard: Nairobi County Governor Johnson Sakaja, the Energy CS Opiyo Wandayi, amongst other long list of leaders who had taken off from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. And it should be landing, estimated time is 3:15 a.m. local time in India. Then it should be back by tomorrow, Thursday, where a long day awaits the Kenyan public, which will be, of course, the public viewing that will begin from 12 p.m. in Parliament. Then later the day, the body of the former Prime Minister will be returned to the Lee Funeral Home. And 8 a.m. on Friday at the Nyayo National Stadium will be the state funeral service that will be attended by dignitaries from outside Kenya to grant the former Prime Minister a fitting send-off. Then the body will spend the night on Friday at his current home here in Nairobi before it will be taken to Kisumu on Saturday for public viewing at Moi Stadium between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And thereafter, the body of the former Prime Minister will be taken by road to Bondo in Siaya County, and on Sunday, where it will spend the night on Saturday, then on Sunday he will be buried as per the traditions of the Anglican Church that he is subscribed to. See, this is the Boeing KQ flight that we are tracking here on Citizen Television, that is also ferrying our team who are aboard, Stephen Leto and our videographer Felix Orare, and we'll be giving you the minute-by-minute update before and after it touches down in Mumbai and escort back the body of the former Prime Minister, the son of the soil, back to Kenya for his burial rites. Yes, Ahmed.
I think that all eyes will be watching that. I think the more important thing is when when the plane comes in and President and the government receives him, and the spiritual, political, economic, social, and cultural leaders of this country, led by our president. And I think that there's an incomprehensive word in the English language called catharsis. Catharsis is a way in which we can make the nation cathartic, which makes a transformation from one era to a new era. And I think that the old order and the old era, which was the symbol was the Prime Minister, and the coming future in which we are going to have to reckon with the issues that the Prime Minister and many other men and women in this country have raised. I think that is the more meaningful thing for us to talk about in the coming days. But for today, as Ayub, we've been up from 3 o'clock in the morning. That's nearly 24 hours. Yeah. And, at least we have to give the analysis of the situation in this country when your mind is clear. So I think for tonight, what we can tell the country, who have also not slept, is that what we need to do is not, there's this old word that says patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. People tend to hide in patriotism when there are other things going on. And what we need to do is to follow the lead of our president, who gave us a really amazing speech. And I thought that for the first time, in my view, I saw the president being presidential, stepping up and upping his game. And I think that if we do that the next few days, the next few weeks, the next few months, and recall the memory of the Prime Minister and the tough times that he went through and the good times, because there's a lot of good times, not only bad times. And I think that that will help in reconstructing the image of our country from this very divisive, really divisive politics that we have in this country. And it might help bring us again together, and that will be the good for the country, and I think it will help us move on to the next stage. Yeah, and before I come to you, David, here is a story prepared by my colleague Safin Achieng Oma, and this is on Raila Odinga, who she had described will be forever immortalized in history books as a prolific leader whose style of politics traversed political generations. Despite being celebrated as a fierce pro-democracy campaigner and liberal democrat,